Alright guys, this is not the video I had planned to make after pulling out some comics and get some few pickups and a few things in the mail and stuff. But what's happened is that, like, it's summertime, where people go outside. I've been amongst people, done a few road trips, took a little time off work. So when I came back and kind of sat down and run my yard and took a shower and sat here and start looking on YouTube and stuff and checking a few messages here, and by no means am I getting tons of messages and stuff, between Facebook and YouTube and all that stuff. But this video is not going to be for probably 95% of the people watching this. But I'm going to talk to the 5% out there, man, because there seems to be a lot of people who, and some are younger guys, and there's a few, I consider them younger compared to me. So, I'm not going to talk like some good grandpa here or nothing like that. But stressing out about collecting, where to start with comics, and YouTube a little bit. And, I've been reading comics for 36 years now, and I've been doing YouTube a little bit. I think I'm working on my third year, getting real close to it, probably, and doing all that stuff. So, I feel like I might have a little bit to share and stuff. So, first of all, I want to address some YouTube stuff a little bit. There's no problems and stuff, but try not to get too stressed out about views on YouTube and whatever else you think you're worried about on YouTube here and stuff. Number one is the summer. Okay, people go outside and they watch less TV and stuff. They go out to the movies, they go to the pool, people hit vacation. This is being filmed a couple days after recorded. Couple days, what is this, 5 days after July 4th and stuff. I've seen people out, and that's the way it should be. The second thing is that, like, when it comes to a YouTube channel, what I figured out is when I started YouTube, and I'm a broke record here this is mostly for the newer guys. When I started YouTube here, I just made videos for my comic boxes so I could go back and see what was in each comic box on a video instead of pulling them out of a closet and digging through them. I had like 26 boxes at the time. Is that right? I don't know. It's been years. They're out on a shelf now. I don't know. And I've gotten rid of, probably in the last 5 years, probably seriously close to 3,000 books I've gotten rid of, trying to shrink down my stuff. And at the same time, I've been accumulating books, so, whatever the odds are and stuff. So, I didn't really set out to think that I was going to get a bunch of subscribers and stuff. Back in the older days, back in the day, the early YouTube videos and stuff like that, man, we might have had, well, me personally, man, might have had like 80 subscribers forever. So a lot of people are coming on here, and the community's built over those years, and you get a lot of subscriptions really quick, and you kind of think that's how it's going to go. And I think it's really pretty easy if you kind of stick to it and be yourself in these videos. You want to get 300 subs real quick. That seems to be the average. I've seen a lot of contests where people are celebrating getting 300 subs. After that, I think it becomes work. And like I said, I was found by a few people just by commenting, and Captain Strange Live, Constant Bromstar, Dakin Howlett, a girl named That One Strawberry, who I refound her channel. She's Kamikaze Strawberry now and stuff. Just little comments, and I started exploring. So what I found out is that, like, as I got into doing the videos and finding a voice and stuff like that, you need to talk about what you know, talk about what you like, and that's what really helps. Because when people don't just come from the comics for the comics, this is my opinion. It starts out about the comics and your haul and all that stuff. Put some of yourself in there, a little personality in there. Just don't hold up a book and say this is what I picked up and expect people to come. And that's the second thing. There's already a community here. There's already people who watch videos, and there's people who are like-minded, who are like, all right, somebody new. I'll sub them and all that stuff. You got to let them know you're here. You can't just sit here and think, okay, people are going to find me. If that's what you're really looking for, and you're wanting more views and maybe get more people in a conversation or something, you got to interact. Just kind of send some people a message or something. There's a bunch of podcasts. Jump in on those. Get your Twitter account and Facebook going. Seek some of these people out. When you go to their channel page, there's two places you can look. There's, like, now we have a big banner, like, where you can put a picture. And there's some, I don't know what you call them, avatars, links that'll take you to their Facebook and their Google and stuff. Or you can you can also click About. You know, when you see, you'll know what I'm talking about when you go to their channel page. There's a little place where it's about that person. You click on it, and that's like where I got my eBay page and stuff. There's other ways to talk to these people. You can do response videos. You know, say somebody's talking about something, you find, you know, keep the conversation going with your opinion and stuff. Um, and I'm gonna stop right there and start talking about the comic book collecting part. Okay, that's the YouTube part. You know, just don't get disheartened. You know, you got to work on it. Let people know you're there. Kind of get a little bit more involved instead of thinking people will come to you. And I hope that didn't come off harsh or assuming that's what you're doing. But I've noticed on YouTube there's been a kind of a thing. Even I fell into it where you were just like, hey, I'm working my butt off on some of these videos. What's up? I think it's just a cycle. We all go through that, and then you kind of chill out. Now, when it comes to the collecting the comics part, that's more where I feel like I've got a foot here I can talk about. A lot of people, a lot of new guys are coming in because video games apparently have been sucking for the last 5 years. So these gamers have decided they need a new hobby, and they come on there, and they want to do comics and stuff. And you know, a lot of people are, it is a hobby, and there's a lot of people, you know, just picking up a new hobby for whatever reason. The movies are bringing people in to the comic books and stuff. And what's kind of weird is that like there's this phenomenon going on where like it's called a geek culture and stuff. And this is where I just cannot be objective because I have collected comic books for 36 years. It was a hobby that I did. It was a hobby that I still do. It's been a hobby where I've had cycles with it. It's always been there. And it wasn't always cool. And it's kind of weird that to me to hear people referring to themselves as geeks and nerds and stuff, and they're fine with it because I'm not a geek. I collect comic books, you know, big shit. You know, my money, my business. It's an introverted hobby, and that's what I'm gonna talk about. I can understand that it's overwhelming. My experience with comics is I love comics. I love everything about there is to a comic book. I like the panels, I like the colors, I like the splash pages, I like the gutters in between the panels, I like the letters page when they had them. Not all books have them anymore. The advertisements, the smell of a comic when you opened up, that having something to look forward to every week because back then you had to run around town on Wednesday. You were kind of competing with other people who were getting the books, and then you would go home and you would read the books and maybe have something to talk to somebody. But at that very moment, it is an introverted hobby that you're reading to yourself. You are entertaining yourself with this book, with your own thoughts. However you hear the characters talking, however you're interpreting this book, whatever you're looking forward to, and then you'll have something to talk to about when you're like-minded people. And as we grow up and grow older, a lot of people get responsibilities, a lot of people get jobs, a lot of people do this, do that. Your buddies who were into comics kind of disappear, and then, oh my God, you find YouTube, and there's a bunch of like-minded people here. So, the thing I would say about comics, and this is not a big secret, man, these are not big epiphanies. There's all kinds of people on here that'll tell you the same thing. Captain Strangelove, Hippie's Collectibles, probably even definitely Dakin Hellette because he loves Wolverine. Get in there and dig through some books and stuff and find what you like, okay? And I'm not trolling on these people, but there's channels that, you know, don't let them influence you. You know what I mean? I mean, there's no pink hair and tattoos here, and I'm not going to sit here and read off Wikipedia and act like I know what's trendy right now to act like I'm all hip. You know, I'm not going to have a channel where it's, you know, I'm not going to do things where it's for attention. And, you know, I shared the channel with a bunch of people, and we kind of talk about ourselves and amongst each other as being rude to people watching and stuff, okay? If you like those channels, that's fine and stuff, but that's not how you do the hobby of what you want to do. When I was a kid, and the way I got into reading comic books and stuff is that, imagine these books here that are on this shelf were in freaking bags and just laid out on tables and stuff, and they were all over the place. And as a 4-year-old kid, I would dive in and I just explored. It was not overwhelming. Nowadays, I think there's a little bit more pressure for people starting out because there's so much more out there. There's so much that people are talking about. And of course, people want to get in on the conversation when they do these things. They don't know where to start. Okay? My advice to you is just get out there, grab a few books, and read and make it fun for you. If you're not having fun, if you're feeling pressure and stuff, maybe it's not a hobby for you, you know, and because you're killing yourself. This is just something on the side. Enjoy what you're reading. Get out there. Don't get stuck on what's trendy. Don't listen to people who get on Wikipedia trying to get their YouTube views up and stuff like that, trying to get you to read what they think is the big book now, trying to be all cool like they're in the know. It's ridiculous, okay? Because all this cycles back to, if you're going to do YouTube videos and stuff like that, and you find what you like and you talk about books, that's what people are here for. They want to see new books. They want to talk about, things that you have in common that you like. Not everybody's going to like anything. And I've had debates and little friendly debates, and I've seen other people have friendly debates about what they like and what they didn't like, and it was not a big deal. That's what people want. That's where the word community comes from. Get out there, take a chance, read a little book, pick up something that you never thought about. The other thing about the comic thing is that a lot of people get trapped into the money part of it and stuff. There are more ways to collect comics than going to your comic book shop or getting a subscription service. What's great about anybody who is, a new collector is that you actually have years and decades. I mean, we're talking like 80 years of stuff laid out there that you can go out and you can pick and choose from. You got yard sales, you got flea markets, you got discount stores, all too much of trades you can get, on there. I think I kind of put my line in the sand here on YouTube, because like I got quarter books, 50-cent book, and dollar books, and very rarely do I really actually pay full price for a comic. Some places you can wait 2-3 months for a comic and it'll go into a dollar box and stuff if you got patience. So that's another way. That's a good way to find out what you want. Once you know what you want, and you're comfortable with buying that book every month, as long as you enjoy it, that's what you got to do. And that kind of goes into what I'm about to say next here. This kind of connects the comic book thing with the YouTube thing, if I'm making any sense here. Okay? But what's going to happen is that once you get out there and you take your time with this, you actually sit down and read the book, and kind of not listen. It's one thing to have somebody be real enthusiastic and passionate about a book, and it makes you want to check it out. Thus, with me, Commandy, Astro City, and Powers, and Sword of the Atom, and all these little jewels that people, in my opinion, forgot about back in the day and stuff like that. Yeah, that's interesting. That's cool, and you make people want to pick up things. That's why we're here. But don't just do it trying to fit in and stuff. Have your opinion and talk about why you like the book, okay? And maybe you'll figure out why you like it too, because that's what's going to make your videos more enriched. Now, I don't get tons and tons of views and stuff, and stuff like that, but I can honestly say that I enjoy what I do, and I enjoy the people who do watch it. And then every now and then I'll get told, hey, I checked out this book and I liked it, man. Thanks for telling me about it. Nothing wrong with that. That's kind of cool. Now, the thing that people want to know where to start with comics and collections and stuff, there's books everybody's heard of, man. There's like Frank Miller, this Dark Knight Returns. You got your Watchmen. Okay, you got the DC 52 going on right now. You got Marvel going on with their movies, and everything's X-Men books and Avengers books, and that DC, everything's more or less turning into Superman and Batman, just kind of taking over everything like that. But you also got to understand you can go back and check things. Okay, so I'm gonna show you 2 books that I like that you can get relatively cheap for the thrill of the hunt. Once you get into comic book collecting, you start finding out what you like. One book you read may have an ad for another comic in it that you want to check out, and that can lead on to something else. Or you end up finding a writer you like. You can follow a writer around other series. Steve Englehart has carried a character named Mantis from Avengers on to Silver Surfer, and actually disguised her for other comic book companies. John Byrne had the story of the Super Skrull that he carried over from Fantastic Four to Alpha Flight to Namor and some other places. There's things like that to collect. And you might find out you like an artist. I will follow George Perez on almost anything he does. Of course Kirby, but George Perez is one now. Now George Perez, the big 2 comic book companies are such a state for workers that apparently they don't like it. George Perez has signed an exclusive contract with Boom Studios. Now I'm sure I've got a book or 2 here from Boom Studios. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but George Perez is there. Now I'm going to check it out. That's another way to collect. Find out who you like. Get to know who these people are. And then you're going to find things you like. Like, I'm not a huge Joe Kubert fan, right? But what he did on Tarzan of the Apes in the early 70s, and that run, is freaking classic. This is back when comic books were more about being a comic book instead of trying to push a movie, be some kind of trailer for a movie or something. And in the storytelling he did with this, the colors, the psychology, just a flat out straight telling of a pulp novel is just amazing on there. Okay, and that's the kind of thing. And then like, don't be afraid of you liking a book that you've heard people didn't like, you know, or you're going to get laughed at or pointed at. You're going to miss a lot of good stuff. You're going to miss a lot of good stuff out there. And don't be ashamed if there's something you like that, you know, kind of makes you feel odd and stuff, because I have no shame on this. One of the books that I like getting when I'm out, and I kind of keep an eye out for, and I always find them cheap, and they're fun to find when I find them, and I've been doing it for years because I had one when I was a kid, is Little Monsters. You know, not a lot of people have heard about this, right? I think they started out in the 60s, and they've been reprinted up into the 70s, so I really don't know how many issues there are. There might be just be 16 issues, and they just kind of reprinted the same ones. But there's nothing like being at a flea market or something and finding my Little Monsters. You know, it's a family of Frankenstein with some ghosts and stuff, and you know, kind of like, you know, really heavily influenced by the Munsters and the Addams family. And it's kind of goth before there was goth. You know, kind of really cool. You know, kind of Tim Burton. Yeah, and that's what makes this hobby fun. Me going out and just finding some of this stuff. You know, you get into that thrill of the hunt. So basically the bottom line is, since you sit here and listen to me for 15 minutes, is basically don't sweat about getting views. Just keep doing what you're doing. Make sure you're putting some personality in there and you're talking about what you're passionate about. People want to see the passionate. Collect what you're passionate about. All right, have some fun with it. Okay, take chances. Buy on the cheap until you know what you really like, and just relax. It's the summertime. You know what I mean? Go out and enjoy your summer and get outside. You know. And, you know, that's just, like I said, that's for that maybe 5% out there I've seen stressing things out, man. Just hang in there, man. Hang in there and have fun. All right? Later.